Very interesting developments. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. There's actually a little bit of breaking I can add on top of this. So the Ukrainian foreign minister sat for an interview with the Financial Times talking about China, and Zelensky actually late last night, Krystal, invited President Xi Jinping to visit Ukraine. So if you put these two things together, it's interesting. When Elon Musk tweets that maybe we should not allow a nuclear war to happen over Crimea, you know, Zelensky attacks him from his Twitter account, the Ukrainians freak out, the NAFO guys on Twitter are all like, yeah, you're right, Elon is a Putin asset. Whenever the Chinese offer a peace proposal, the Ukrainians have to take it real seriously for a number of reasons. Number one, their worst nightmare is China beginning to provide lethal aid to Russia that they can use on the battlefield in Ukraine. Two, China is a longtime trade partner and purchaser of Ukrainian grain and props up a decent amount of their economy.
Was their largest trading partner until very recently.
One of their largest trading partners. Three, they know that if they don't entertain this well, that the ongoing diplomatic efforts that the Chinese are making will be used against them. China actually just struck a deal yesterday with Brazil to no longer have trade between the two nations denominated in U.S. dollars. That's something that they have long been trying to go against, and lo and behold, it's an easy way to get around any sanctions. You know, this is a funny thing too. I remember going back and talking about the sanctions. Everyone's like, oh, the sanctions, like, so worth it. First of all, not a lot of evidence that it worked the way that it's intended. Seems like Russia's military is doing fine in Ukraine. Second, one of the points I was trying to make is like, hey, if we're ever in a real thing, we just blew it. Like, it's over. You know, China was looking at this and like, okay, we got to sanction-proof our economy. No, I mean, we literally just blew the entire international sanction system that could have worked at one time, potentially, in some sort of future issue that you have with a real power like China on Russia. And now the Chinese are doing their absolute best to build up diplomatic capital and sanction-proof their own economy and international trade relations with countries like Brazil, who, last time I checked, is one of the largest powers in all of South America. So we know, once again, one of the reasons why it was such an idiotic mistake to do so. But overall, what did this Ukrainian foreign minister say? He says, quote, China is testing the grounds in terms of the peace process, whether the moment has come for them to play a role or not. Listen again to the language. He's not shooting it down. He says Beijing has currently still not conceded to the request from Zelensky for a conversation with Xi Jinping, part of the reason why Zelensky went ahead and invited him to the capital here this morning. But he also said that China's foreign minister earlier this month assured him that China would not provide weapons to Russia, which is interesting that the fact that the two foreign ministers are speaking. He says Kyiv currently sees no evidence that they are doing so. He has made it clear to Chinese officials it is very inappropriate to try and put on the same footing military support provided to Ukraine and military support provided to Russia. Overall, though, they are what is obvious to me in this is that they view this as a very important development that they have to take very seriously. You know, if somebody like you or I, Krystal, says what the Chinese did, then we'll end up on some weird Ukrainian media blacklist, like Glenn Greenwald and other people. But when the Chinese government, which has real power behind it, they are forced to entertain. So once again shows you that a path to resolution is very likely not to run through Washington, and increasingly possibly could run through Beijing, just because of the sheer amount of power they have over the situation right now.
Yeah, I thought perhaps the most interesting line to me in this whole piece from the Financial Times, which has done good reporting here.
Yes, great.
They say Western capitals have expressed skepticism about China's statement of principles for ending the war, which it issued last month. But officials in Kyiv are keen to engage with Beijing, which also, once again, exposes the lie of Biden's repeated statement that nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, except when it comes to China trying to broker a ceasefire or peace deal. Then it's like, no, we can't have that. So it just shows you, I mean, that was always a farce. It was always, we were always the dominant figures. We always had an opinion about how this wanted to go. And the war has unfolded exactly in the way that the U.S. has wanted it to unfold in terms of the Ukrainian approach and the length of time that it has taken. So now that there's, you know, any sort of slight opening of peace talks from the Chinese side, which may or may not be real. I just want to be really clear in like tempering expectations here. And Ukraine is interested, then we're like, no, we've got our own opinion here. So that is quite remarkable. I also thought some of the analysis here was interesting, which I hadn't thought of before, in terms of what China's ideal situation is with regard to Russia. And the argument put forth here is basically like, China also would like Russia to be kind of weakened because they get cheaper gas prices then. So that's a good situation for them. But they don't want Russia to like completely fail and become dependent on them. Obviously, they want them as the clear weakened junior partner.
Yes.
That's like the ideal scenario.
I can get some insight into this. I studied a long time like Chinese-North Korean relations because one of the things was like, why do they care so much? Why are they guaranteeing
Right.
the North Korean regime? Here's the deal. They like it. They like having this junior nuclear power prod in the West, right up there against South Korea, traditional, not necessarily an ally of the Chinese. And they like having this, you know, hammer that they have over the South Koreans anytime that they want, every time they get a little too uppity in terms of their military equipment. And also, it's basically like a dog that you feed that is terrorizing somebody that you don't like. It's the same thing with Russia. They love the fact, too, that North Korea is totally dependent on the Chinese for trade relations, for a lot of its goods, for the border that they share. Same thing with the Russians. I know I'm a broken record on this, but one of the things that we always wanted to provide or prevent was the growing China being an ally with the Soviet Union because we recognized that it would be a disaster. The power dynamic is flipped. You know, basically the Soviet Union, Russia is now basically China in 1970, and you know, China is now probably more powerful ever than the Soviet Union ever was. And you put the two of them together, that's not a good geopolitical situation for us overall. They would never want Russia to fade. You know, any sort of democratic type Russia would be a disaster for them. You don't forget the long land border that they share up in the north. So overall, strategically, things are just moving in a bad direction for the U.S. If you care about the U.S. being a global peacemaker.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And China is clearly seizing every opportunity available right now with the Saudi-Iran deal, with these, you know, potential getting involved in peace negotiations possibility, with the deal they just did with Brazil, to try to further force into reality a multipolar world that they very much want. I mean, they're very overt about that.
Well, I mean, I can't help but think about that comment that Xi made whenever he was leaving the Kremlin, and he said, you know, change is coming that we haven't seen in 100 years. And no. What happened 100 years ago? Oh, right, the First World War. Okay, didn't work out so well.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.